There is a phrase in the Bible so short that most people read right past it. Just 2 words. At some of the most important moments in Scripture, the words are I am. They appear in a burning bush in the wilderness. They appear in the temple courts of Jerusalem. They appear in the Gospel of John. And they appear at the very end of the Bible in Revelation. But the story of I am doesn't begin with Moses. In many ways, it begins at the very beginning, before the mountains existed, before the oceans formed, before the stars filled the heavens, before there was time itself. The opening words of Genesis declare, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Notice what the text does not do. It never explains where God came from. It never introduces him as a new character entering the story. God is simply there, already existing, already sovereign, already present. Everything else in creation has a beginning. The sun has a beginning. The moon has a beginning. The earth has a beginning. Humanity has a beginning. But God does not. The Bible presents him as the one who exists before all things, the one who depends on nothing, the one from whom everything else receives life. And this is exactly what makes the declaration, I am, so powerful. Because when God says I am, he is not merely stating his name. He is revealing his nature. He is revealing that he is the eternal one, the one who was, the one who is, and the one who is to come. This truth echoes throughout the entire Bible. Again and again, Scripture points to the reality that God stands outside the limitations that bind every created thing. He does not grow old. He does not weaken. He does not change. Empires rise and fall. Kings come and go. Civilizations appear and disappear. But God remains, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that brings us back to Moses. Imagine standing before a burning bush. The flames are real. The heat is real. Yet the bush is not consumed. The laws of nature themselves seem suspended. Moses removes his sandals. The ground beneath him has become holy. And then the voice speaks. A voice unlike any other. A voice carrying authority over heaven and earth. A voice that knows the future before it happens. This is the moment everything changes. Because God is about to reveal something humanity has never heard before. I am who I am. Not I was. Not I will be. But I am. Present. Active. Eternal. A God who is not confined by time. A God who does not need anyone to sustain him. A God who simply is. And for thousands of years, those words would echo through history. Until another moment. Another declaration, another voice, this time not from a burning bush, but from a man walking the roads of Judea, a man called Jesus. And what he says shocks everyone listening. The Gospel of John contains 7 famous I am statements. Each one reveals something unique about Christ. Each one points back to the God of Exodus. And each one reveals his mission to the world. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. In a world starving for meaning, he offers spiritual nourishment. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. In a world darkened by sin and confusion, he offers truth and direction. Jesus says, I am the door, the entrance into salvation, the entrance into relationship with God. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, a shepherd who knows his sheep, a shepherd willing to lay down his life for them. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. A declaration so powerful that it changes the way humanity understands death itself. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not one way among many, not one truth among many, but the way, the truth, and the life. Finally, Jesus says, I am the true vine, the source of spiritual life, the source of lasting fruitfulness. Yet among all these statements, one stands above the rest. One statement that caused immediate outrage. One statement that nearly got him killed on the spot. In John chapter 8, Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. Notice what he did not say. He did not say, "Before Abraham was, I was." That would have been grammatically expected. Instead, he deliberately used the words, "I am." The crowd understood exactly what he meant. So clearly, in fact, that they picked up stones to kill him. Why? Because they recognized the connection to Exodus. They understood that Jesus was identifying himself with the eternal God who spoke to Moses. This wasn't merely a claim to wisdom. It wasn't merely a claim to authority. It was a claim to divinity. A claim that changed history forever. Hundreds of years after Moses stood before the burning bush, another man would encounter the majesty of God. His name was Isaiah, and the vision he received would leave him shaken to his core. Isaiah chapter 6 begins with these words, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord." Imagine the scene, a throne towering above all others, the temple filled with glory, seraphim surrounding the throne, powerful heavenly beings crying out without ceasing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." The foundations of the temple shake. Smoke fills the room. The very atmosphere trembles before God's presence. And Isaiah realizes something terrifying. He is standing before absolute holiness. Suddenly, all confidence disappears. All pride vanishes. And he cries out, "Woe is me, for I am ruined." Why? Because when imperfect humanity encounters perfect holiness, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Isaiah sees his own sin, his own weakness, his own unworthiness. Yet instead of destroying him, God cleanses him. A burning coal touches his lips. His guilt is removed. His sin is forgiven. This moment reveals something important about the God who says, He is not only eternal, He is holy, completely pure, completely righteous, completely set apart from all creation. Yet He desires relationship with His people. The God of the burning bush is also the God of mercy. The God of justice is also the God of grace. And throughout Scripture, these truths remain inseparable. God is holy. God is loving. God is eternal. God is near. The I Am of Exodus is the same God Isaiah saw upon the throne. And centuries later, Jesus would make an astonishing claim that connected Himself directly to this divine identity. Throughout His ministry, Jesus performed miracles. He healed the sick. He opened blind eyes. He calmed storms. He raised the dead. These acts amazed the crowds. But it was not His miracles alone that caused controversy. It was His words. Again and again, Jesus used language that pointed beyond mere humanity. The religious leaders noticed. They listened carefully, and they became increasingly disturbed. Then came one of the most dramatic moments in the Gospel of John. The discussion centered around Abraham. The Jewish leaders reminded Jesus that Abraham had lived nearly 2,000 years earlier. How could Jesus know anything about him? Then Jesus answered, "Before Abraham was, I am." The statement stunned everyone. This was not ordinary speech. This was not accidental wording. This was a direct echo of Exodus chapter 3. The crowd immediately understood. That is why they picked up stones. To them, Jesus was claiming equality with God. The same eternal identity revealed to Moses, the same divine name spoken from the burning bush. And Jesus did not correct them. He did not explain it away. He allowed the statement to stand exactly as spoken, because it was true. The I Am of Exodus was now walking among humanity. God had entered His own creation. The Creator had stepped into history. The Eternal One had taken on flesh. And the greatest demonstration of that truth was still ahead. On the night before the crucifixion, Jesus entered the Garden of Gethsemane. Soldiers approached with torches. Temple guards came carrying weapons. Judas led the way. The betrayal had begun. The crowd expected resistance. Instead, Jesus stepped forward, calm, fearless, in complete control. He asked, "Whom do you seek?" They replied, "Jesus of Nazareth." Then Jesus answered with two simple words, "I am." What happened next is extraordinary. The Gospel records that the soldiers drew back and fell to the ground. Think about that. armed men suddenly collapsing before an unarmed carpenter. Why? Many Bible scholars believe this moment reveals a glimpse of divine authority. For a brief instant, the power behind the name became impossible to ignore. The one standing before them was not merely a man. He was the eternal Son of God, the great I Am. Yet rather than escaping arrest, Jesus willingly surrendered himself, because his mission was not to avoid the cross. His mission was to embrace it. The story of I Am was moving toward its greatest revelation, the place where God's love and justice would meet, the cross of Calvary. There, the holy God who had revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush took upon himself the sins of the world. The one who declared, I Am bore the punishment humanity deserved. 3 days later, he rose from the dead, proving his victory over sin and death forever. From the burning bush to the throne of Isaiah, from the streets of Jerusalem to the cross and the empty tomb, the message remains the same. God is not distant. God is not absent. God is not powerless. He is the great I Am, the eternal, holy, loving, and sovereign Lord. And the same God who called Moses by name still calls people today, inviting them to know him, trust him, and follow him. The question is no longer who God is. The question is, how will you respond to the great I Am?